Welcome back. You're watching HFO-TV.
Pleasure to be in front of you guys again, discussing some of the real estate and economic trends that we're seeing, both across the state and here in Oregon. I think some of the things I'm going to bring to the table this morning are a little bit of a, for lack of a better term, a cognitive dissonance, where we're talking about there's a difference between the very short-term outlook for some of the multifamily developments, particularly if you're just coming out of the ground today. The market reality has maybe shifted from when you started your pro formas a handful of years back. But that said, if we focus on the medium to long-term fundamentals of what's driving the economy, what's driving the growth we've seen today, you know, the concerns over the next couple of years aren't really a big macroeconomic problem. It's not really a long-term issue. It's going to be some temporal mismatch, some temporary timing mismatch as supply is catching up to demand. And so along those lines, when it comes to a cognitive dissonance, I was thinking about it, and last night was a perfect example. Got home, played with the kids, put them to bed, grabbed a beer out of the fridge, sat down on the couch, and the power went out, all right? And we were out, the power came back on about 1:30 in the morning, and so we were out of power. My wife and I, we lit some candles, drank a little bit, just talked, which is a little something that we used to do, apparently, I guess. You know, we didn't just play on our phones. But what happened during that time period last night when couldn't turn on the TV was the Blazers game. So I didn't know they lost, right? And so I thought, you know, we still have a chance in this series. We can come back, woke up this morning, checked the phone, and of course we didn't, right? So again, that's kind of where we're at when it comes to the rental property market today is, again, if you're looking for 4 or 5% rent appreciation in 2018, 2019, 2020, to make your ends meet, you're maybe going to have a little bit of issues. But if we look at the 5 and 10-year forecast down the line, there's plenty more people coming here. These apartment units will be full over the medium term. It's just we're going to have some temporary mismatches. And so with that, I think it's important to take a step back and take stock of exactly what's going on in the Portland regional economy. And the growth we've seen today is not just transformational from a built environment perspective. We've seen a transformational change in our underlying economy here in the Portland region and in Oregon more broadly. This scatter plot shows household income gains on the vertical axis over the last decade versus educational attainment increases for the working age population on the horizontal axis. It's the 100 largest metropolitan areas in the country. You know, from New York and Los Angeles all down through Portland and Pittsburgh, somewhere in the 2025 ranking range, all the way down to places that are just a little under 1 million in population. And over the last decade, Portland has been top 5 out of these 100 metropolitan regions, top 5 for high-wage job growth, which is a lot of office-type work, consultants, doctors, attorneys, things like that that pay $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 and above for the median worker. And of course, people have much higher salaries than that in a lot of these occupations as well. So top 5 for high-wage job growth. We're top 5 for educational attainment increases, the share of people with a college degree. And we're also top 5 for household income gains, right? And along these lines, we've kind of moved from maybe the 30th highest ranking metropolitan area around the country up to more like the 20th ranking metropolitan area when you take stock of the entire nation. So we've made transformational gains in a physical sense in the Portland region and continue to do so, but we've also done it from a fundamental economic perspective. And one of the keys to this growth that we're seeing both in the short term and what we've seen over our entire history is population growth. When we look at the Oregon economy and the Portland economy, what are some of the things we do at a truly world-class level? Not just things we do well, but things we do at a world-class level. Timber and wood products, if we actually cut down the trees. Semiconductors, food and beverage, apparel and design. These are things that we truly do at a world-class level. Something else we do, particularly here in the Portland region, is draw people in. Population growth. We're a magnet state. We're a magnet region. People want to live here because we have a strong regional economy and a high quality of life. This has been going on, not just this cycle. This has been going on since before Lewis and Clark. You can go all the way back to when we had Pangea and it was breaking up and the continents were forming. We had the land bridge across the Bering Sea, right? That's when the first people packed up and moved to this part of the world. And turns out Sasquatch followed them too. And so that's how long this has been going on. So this is nothing new. This population growth we're seeing is nothing new. Today, about 1 in 3 adults in the Portland metropolitan area were born in Oregon, right? So 2/3 of us were born outside of the state, and we've made our way here at some point over the years. And so this is expected to continue. Again, strong economy, high quality of life, people want to live in this sort of area. So this is one of our big comparative advantages for the regional economy. Anything that puts this at risk would alter our medium, long-term economic and revenue forecasts for the state of Oregon and for the cities and things like that. And 2 things stand out when it comes to risk to the population growth. One that's at the tip of everyone's tongue these days is affordability. There's no question our affordability crisis in the last decade has caused massive problems. We have households spending significantly larger share of their budgets on housing than they have in quite some time, and maybe in our recorded history going back decades in the census data. So they're spending more on housing, they have less available to make other ends meet. We've also had massive displacement, where we're pushing people out of the urban core towards the fringes, pushing them towards East County, a little bit to the west, but mostly towards East County. And you're seeing that. The lowest vacancy rates are in East Multnomah County, right? And partly because it's more affordable, people are being displaced and forced in that general direction to try and make household budgets in. So this is a massive problem. One silver lining here is the extent that we're pushing them within the region and displacing them within the region, but we're not forcing them to leave the Portland area entirely. Unlike places in California and some other high-cost metro areas on the East Coast and in Florida, where lower-income households are packing up and moving away entirely. They're going to Dallas, or they're going to Houston, or in the Northwest, maybe they're going to Boise a little bit. It was more affordable than Portland. But we're not seeing that here. The inflow of lower-income households to the Portland region every single year, as you see in this chart, has outstripped the number of lower-income households that are leaving the region. And we haven't seen a tick up in the outflow of people saying housing is the reason I'm leaving either, right? So again, we're still a draw place. Lower income households are still moving here, but the concern is that our affordability problems will become so acute, so bad, that they'll choose not to move to Portland in the future, right? And so that is the concern, is if that migration flows dry up, then our long-term outlooks are significantly lower than what's being expected, because we'll have less labor supply. There'll be less workers for local businesses to hire and to expand and to grow and to chase business opportunities. Another risk to the outlook is the economy, right? We know people hunker down during a recession. They don't move nearly as much. And so, again, affordability can choke off growth because fewer people will move here. Well, a recession, we know fewer people will move because job opportunities are significantly less. And here in Oregon, job opportunities are significantly less relative to the typical state, because we're more boom-bust over the entire business cycle. And so here we're looking at population, historical, and forecast for young people in the Portland metropolitan area, the core apartment demographic, if you will, 20 to 34 years old. The reason why this is an important segment is for population growth. Again, migration is for the young. People in their 20s and their 30s move at significantly higher rates than people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and so on. So these are the people that are moving. These are the people that would stop moving here during a downturn, or if affordability becomes a bigger problem. Take a look at the 1980s, when we had the timber industry restructuring. We had declines in some of the young population. People actually packed up and left the state of Oregon in 1981 and 82 for the only time in our recorded history we know that happened, was that more people left than came in because of the severity of the downturn. There's also some demographic issues where the baby boomers were aging into their 30s and 40s and out of their 20s and their 30s. That's part of that decline there too. And so moving forward, the risk here would be that a downturn or affordability problems would stop this flow of young skilled workers in particular. The other thing to point out about this would be that the generation that's following the millennials as they're aging out of their 20s today, Generation Z is the same size, relatively speaking, particularly in Oregon, given our migration flow. So again, we're not going to have a massive demographic shift like we saw with the baby boomers going into Gen X, where we had a bust. That's much more even demographics today, even if the millennials are a little bit larger. You put it all together, and we're talking about all households, all age groups here. we're going to have more people moving to the Portland region, filling up apartments, looking to buy single-family product. Again, over the next 5 years, you take these population forecasts, you put on assumptions about household formation rates by age, home ownership rates by age, and you get something about 90,000 new households over the next 5 years, another 85,000 the 5 years after that. So there's a lot of people expected to move here if these population forecasts are reasonably right. And so again, here, the concern is not what is going to happen in the next year or two from a macroeconomic perspective in terms of vacancy rates and rents and things like that. In fact, better affordability for households in the Portland metropolitan region is a boon for the regional economy. Now, it might not be a boon for every single one of your properties, but from a big picture economic perspective is greatly beneficial for local residents and for the regional economy. And moving forward, we'll have more people of both ownership and rental households moving forward. Where would, again, the risk to this forecast be if we don't build enough housing so they can't move here, either from affordability perspective or there's not a vacant unit to move to, and we have one of the lowest vacancy rates in recent years when you compare all the metropolitan areas across the country. That's a big concern. The other one here is the actual split between owners and renters. This is looking at the current lay of the land, right, where people in their 20s are 80% renters, and people in their mid-30s are 50% renters, 50% owners, and ownership obviously is much higher and up to 80% ownership rate in your 50s. And so looking at that split and aging the population through, we're expecting significantly more homeowners moving forward than we are renters. If you look at the last 15 years, this is really a special case for the big increase in rental households, right? It's a minority of the overall market, and we're expecting it to probably continue to be a minority of the market moving forward. The lack of ownership properties, lack of single-family homes being developed could act as a constraint on home ownership. Not so much that people can't afford to put down a down payment as the economic cycle has picked up and household incomes are rising. It'd be much more that there's nowhere for them to move into and it forces them to stay into the rental market. So this flip, or this switch here between rental households and ownership households, that's another risk to this population forecast or projection you see in front of you. It kind of depends upon what product the market is building. And so with that, we're sitting here at a strong regional economy, high quality life, people want to move here. This is expected to continue, particularly up until the next recession. Then we know migration flows will slow a little bit, but then they'll pick back up in the next expansion, as they always do, given the strengths we have here in the Pacific Northwest. And again, the longer term concern, the bigger macroeconomic concern is not what's going to happen over the next couple of years. It's that we're going to need to build significantly more units than we already have over the next 10 years, right? Again, we might have a little bit of a supply-demand imbalance in the opposite direction in the next couple of years relative to where we've been, where demand outstrips supply. Now supply is catching up and will outstrip demand for a few years. But over the long term, that's not enough to sustain us given these population forecasts. And so we're going to continue to need to add supply to the market moving forward. And with that, always happy to chat. Give me a call, send me an email if you want to discuss any of this in the future. Thank you.
Our entire office specializes in multifamily real estate, making HFO the largest multifamily brokerage in the Pacific Northwest. Your success is our passion. Build your legacy with HFO. Call 503-241-5541 or visit our website at hfore.com for more information.